Hello, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. If you enjoy this video or the channel as a whole, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, liking the video if you think we did a good job, and most importantly, sharing this video everywhere. We would greatly appreciate it. Your support means everything to us. Thanks to everyone who already supports us. Bit of a disclaimer, I have had my doubts about the show, but this is me trying to give an unbiased, objective review of the Rings of Power. If they do something good, then I will praise them. If they do something bad, I will call them out. But I will try to look at the show from a perspective of entertainment, lore, realism, and cinematic quality. So please bear with me. This could be a long one. Oh, and it's going to be pretty spoiler heavy, so if you want to watch the show without knowing anything, you might want to skip this one. That being said, feel free to come back after you have seen the episode. We start off the episode with the stranger walking in the rain. The lighting looks like a blue filter over everything and looks very unnatural. Boulders are too gray, and it's an artificial grim dark concept, but misplaced with random nonsense that is supposed to make it feel like a damp, rainy morning. They could have just filmed on a damp, rainy morning. A figure catches the stranger's attention, and he follows it, and it turns out to be everyone's favorite, Nori. Or is it? Nori, not Nori, also known as Feminem, her and her friends came to serve Lord Sauron. This is just more smoke and mirrors trying to call everyone Sauron. Adar was called Sauron by the Butcher. The stranger is called Sauron by the Freaks. What's next? Gil-galad is called Sauron? Maybe Galadriel? We can't take the show seriously with this low-level writing. We get a panoramic shot of Galadriel and Halbrand, who is hunched over, though he should be dead considering the distance to travel, and are arriving in Celebrimbor's territory. Celebrimbor and Elrond are trying to figure out a way to make a small lump of mithril into a big saving grace of the elves. I will remind you that I called it last episode that they will use mithril to make the Rings of Power, and that is how they save the elves. Well, guess who's coming to teach them how to smith? Halbrand. Looks can be deceiving. He is conveniently hurt and will get healed by the non-existent healers of elfdom. Thanks, Arondir. And then provide his services in return, gathering elven forces to take the Southlands or something. That'd be great. Not sure that'll actually happen, but that's where they're trying to lead us into thinking. Celebrimbor mentions that, quote, the sun itself began as something no bigger than the palm of my hand. The tree, Laurelin, the gold, produced a single fruit of fire called Anar, that Aule and his people crafted a vessel to carry it in, and then it was carried into the sky by the Maya, Arian, the only fire Maya that did not follow Melkor, and all feared her fiery brightness, even Sauron, who was also Maya. The rest of the fire Maya followed Melkor and became Balrogs among other servants of Morgoth. As they are about to admit failure to Gil-galad, Galadriel shows up with the wounded Halbrand. While Halbrand is being treated, Elrond asks how their paths crossed and how she is here. She asks him how he is here. Hold up. What do you mean, how are you here? Elrond can travel. He is not bound to any one place. And if he is sent somewhere, then why wouldn't he be able to arrive? Maybe she's implying that she didn't want to see anyone from the court so she wouldn't get stirred up by her presence, and now the cat is out of the bag. Elrond begins sibbing for Galadriel and saying how he should never have put her on that ship and that he should have trusted her. Like he had a say? Gil-galad, the High King, commanded it, not him. He is a lowly half-elf. When asked by Elrond what they should do, she says the most profound Finding Nemo, Finding Dory line I have ever heard. Swim. Celebrimbor is working and Halbrand just wanders into his place of work. How convenient. Halbrand tells his story of working as an apprentice. You'd be surprised to find out who it is. And butters up Celebrimbor. Then we get a look at some gems. Now, if you were like me, the first thing I thought of was the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time jewels that you gather at the Temple of Time. If you aren't like me, well, then you need to level up your nerdiness. These are obviously the gems that will be in the Elven Rings of Power, although Sauron never knew of them. So another brick from the canon it is. They are also broken colored glass, not actual gemstones, nor are they refined or cut. We will learn more of this later when I cover the interview of a gemologist and jeweler on the topic. Halbrand began to teach Celebrimbor to use other ores to enhance the mithril ore, making it stronger and more present by combining it to use it more and not lose strength when stretching it out. Something that Sauron taught Celebrimbor in the books. The way he suggests it is way too personal on the topic, but it doesn't fit the king of the Southlands. Looks can be deceiving. Another panoramic shot, but this one looks a little bit too much CGI. It's Numenor with the tower being the main focus point, but we're going to head into the Old King's Tower, and Ar-Pharazôn is telling builders' apprentices that they have been selected among the masters to create the Old King's visage for a tomb. And somehow, Elendil's daughter is in the running. This entire storyline could have been removed. It has no place in the story, and it doesn't drive the plot. It doesn't create anything for the characters to progress towards in development. Nothing. Unless there is a plot to kill the old king, and then she hears about it, etc., which is the point of the story itself. But the writers deem themselves Tolkien's equal, if not his better. But we could do one better than that. Elendil's daughter gets an hour with the king alone to sketch his visage. She wipes some saliva from his mouth, and he grabs her hand and talks to her as if she is Tar Miriel, and says that if the old ways are not restored, then the island is doomed. She calls for help, but when she gets back, the king has left his bed and opened a secret passage that leads to the Palantir. She gets a free pathway up to the tower, and she pulls the cloth of the Palantir. It skips over to Gil-galad. Celebrimbor suggests making a crown that allows the light to reflect upon itself and bounce around to do something. We know it will be a ring since gemstones do what Celebrimbor wants, but they started out as a crown, but Gil-galad doesn't like it. It's perilous. Not a reason as to why, just that it is. False drama creation. The great tree is dying. Not sure why this matters, as the elves are not tied to a tree, but he says they must leave these shores, otherwise the elves are doomed. Okay, then leave. You already showed that by sending Galadriel to Valinor that it can be done, so just do it. Why are we trying to find a way out? You have the solutions, so just do it. They needed it sooner, but Celebrimbor lays into the king and says they almost had it sooner, but the Southlander king gave him the idea. Gil-galad responds with, "The low human?" Talk about racist. But Celebrimbor says something even more telling about the writer's level of quality. Halbrand's advice was, "But the key that unlocked the dam." Anyone else have memories of episode 6 when the butcher puts the sword in a hole and twists it like a key and unlocked a dam that woke a volcano? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Gil-galad denies Celebrimbor's plans and tells them all to come to Lindon. Galadriel asks Celebrimbor where he heard the words power over flesh. Celebrimbor is Sauron confirmed. That's 3 Saurons so far. The real secret of the show is everyone is Sauron. Shh! Don't tell anybody. Elrond manages to get Gil-galad to give him 3 months. So they get to work. Of course, Halbrand gets to help. This workshop's mechanics look horrible. It's like 3D printed wood with paint on top. I think this is their attempt at making Galadriel look feminine, but it really looks off. Galadriel is getting suspicious of Halbrand. Looks can be deceiving. She has a scribe scour the histories for the Southland's lineage. Now the stranger is being talked to by his vampire followers. One even wears a headdress with bat ears on it. The constellations that the stranger has been searching for is called the Hermit's Hat. A few things on this. One, why is it called the Hermit's Hat, and why is it so cheesy? And like, this is the whole constellation searching thing is completely made up, so I don't know why it has anything to do with this, but it's literally just downright silly. And neither party makes sense looking for it in that case, and we'll get to that. But I'm not sure why they're using the same constellation as the stranger, since later they will divert courses, but the two things that relate to the story have no relation at all. The vampires are from Rune. The stranger is unconscious, and the Harfoots are watching this all happen from hiding. They plan on freeing the stranger, but when they get to the stranger, it's actually Feminem. Sadok is hit by a dagger and presumably dies. Nori is captured. As the vampires are about to kill Nori, the stranger shows up and gets into a fight with them over Nori. Nori escapes, and the dagger vampire chases and locks Poppy to a tree. As the vampire goes to finish them off, Sadok pops out of a random trapdoor in the ground and then stabs her in the foot. What is with this show and stabbing others in the foot? Aim for something vital. This is Bronwyn all over again. But we do get this wonderful shot from it. The stranger gets thrown around in Saruman style, and I wonder, why do they need him if they are stronger than him? Feminem goes to hurt him some more and gets pelted by rocks thrown by Harfoots. Feminem has enough. I would also like to point out that in every instance of wind, knockbacks, or anything else, shockwaves or anything, Feminem's shawl thing never falls. It actively is glued to her head in a maelstrom. Also, what is she looking at? It looks like her eyes rolled up into her head after getting smacked in the head by a baseball bat or a brick. It looks like the lack of intelligence, if you know what I mean. So Feminem starts flamethrowing the area because the Harfoots. Nori tries to get the stranger to take Feminem's staff. I don't know why, but I'm guessing they're going for the whole using the wizard staff trope, as his power comes from that. But the vampires return, and Nori's mom is fending them off with a moon dagger. And Feminem goes to flamethrow them out of existence, but then the flame in her hands disappear, and the stranger arrives with the staff. They actually call him the Astari, although they say the Astari, whatever that means. But no, we can't have nice things. Discount Gandalf has arrived. He says, "I'm good," in the most comical way imaginable. Then raises his staff and light pops out. And we get a scene from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think they are trying to put Feminem as a Nazgul, if not the Witch King himself, which is absurd, of course, but so is the show, so Nothing is sacred. Say cheese! They turned into moths and fly away, and the staff disintegrates. I have no idea what just happened because it really isn't supposed to have any meaning. Just, wow, look at the pretty colors. Sadok sits down and is in bad shape. Nori's mom says they'll find a way to carry him back. Very unlike the Harfoots. But he says he's about to go off trail. Why? You have a wizard right next to you. Why not have him do wizardry stuff? Discount Gandalf just looks at him. On the Númenórean ship, Tarmiriel is practicing blind walking. She has a conversation with Elendil, nothing of particular note, mostly rubbish. They enter the harbor and see a bunch of banners that basically announce that the king has died. The elves have been trying to meld the mithril with force and failing, so now they try doing it without force. Galadriel finds out that the Southlands have no king and the line was broken. He told her the truth the entire time and she ignored him, and he admits to being Sauron. She tries to stab him but collapses and wakes up on Valinor. A series of flashbacks with pointless info. It's Palpatine all over again. Galadriel breaks the spell and almost kills Elrond. She heads to Celebrimbor's tower, and we find out it's her idea to make the three rings for the elves, not Celebrimbor's. One corrupts, two divides, but three balances. Explain that to the dwarves and men. Galadriel must give up her brother's dagger for its pure uh, Valorian metals, Valinorian, I guess, metals to make the rings. The Harfoots don't have much, but that discount Gandalf is leaving for Rune, and the Harfoots are packing up to head elsewhere. And there's a snippet about Poppy being the Wayfinder, which means that's probably what's going to happen in the future. Nori's family gives her a pack so she can join the wizard. The abomination that these writers made is unforgivable. They use several lines from Peter Jackson's works, worded slightly different, but steal the lines of "Which way, Gandalf?" and "The smells part from Moria." Elrond discovers the truth of Halbrand, and the rings are complete. They are hideous. They have no true artisans among them. I didn't even cut the gems for better refraction, so I asked a gemologist for his take on this quality. If the lore states that the stones capture light, there are a few features the stones need in order to do so. They need to be transparent to accept the light, not translucent or opaque. They also need to be shaped in a certain way to refract the light back out of the stone. In the jewelry industry, it's called a brilliant cut. The large flat surface is called the table facet. It allows the most light to enter the stone. Like a larger window lets more light into a room. From there, it needs to hit the bottom of the stone at certain angles to bounce back out of the top. This part is called the pavilion, and in profile looks like a V. It appears the stones are mounted upside down and cut in rough checkerboard, which is not just a failure to understand lore, but a failure to understand the basics of jewelry. Jeremiah Galindo, Colored Stones GIA, Diamond and Diamond Grading GIA. The image shown explains a gem that is cut and how refraction, the light bouncing off of the cut sides, happens, which is basically what we just heard from Mr. Galindo. But basically, in a nutshell, they didn't really cut the gems, so they just left them the way they were. So the very thing that Celebrimbor wanted to accomplish in terms of bouncing the light off to create power of this kind or that kind cannot happen. Like quite literally cannot happen because of the way they are cut, or I should say lack of cut. But as we heard earlier, the stones themselves are actually not stones, they're like broken glass, which is just colored. So you'd think you have this billion-dollar 5-season series, you think they'd be able to afford at least the most basic jewelry. And I mean, you could easily get 3 rings that were legitimate for pretty cheap, even if you just borrowed them and then gave them back to a jeweler or something afterwards or whatever. It'd probably not pay exorbitant amount of money. But I mean, you're already spending $1 billion. What's actual getting legitimate props as opposed to getting artificial ones that don't look the part, nor do they actually do anything. But the design of the actual ring itself, like the metal part, the non-gem, is still hideous and disgusting in every possible way. At least the ones that Peter Jackson's crew made at Weta Workshops, at least those actually look good. They look like legitimate rings. So there's that. And this is what they would look like from the Amazon version. And out of the three, the red looks the least atrocious, but all of the rocks being the way they are is just pretty bad, and the little platforms they have the gems on just look horrible. So it's bad. Then Sauron heads to Mount Doom. I have no idea how they plan to make the rings of men and dwarves since they were all made by the elves. But we got only 3, so I presume that they will have Sauron make all the rings left. But why would he leave knowing of their existence and not corrupt them? It doesn't have any rhyme or reason to it, but then again, all the things that led up to this didn't make sense. So there's that. And that's the end of the first, or well, the first, huh, the end of the episode and the finale to the first season. Did it impress you? Is the final product of the rings up to your standards? Could they have been done better? Let us know down in the comments. And thanks again for sticking around. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, but most importantly, please share this video everywhere. Thank you for your support. Walk in the light, my friends.